Welcome to the Chronicles of Starwood Bound, where every star holds a tale of wonder and mystery. Today, our story unfolds through the eyes of an alien anthropologist named Zyra, who delves into the intricacies of human behavior, particularly their fierce protective instincts toward their offspring. Or as Zyra puts it, they will unmake you. From her research, Zyra discovered a peculiar paradox about humans. Despite their seemingly frail and squishy physical form, humans are among the most formidable creatures in the galaxy. This contradiction is striking. While adult humans are nearly indomitable, their infants are extraordinarily vulnerable, often succumbing to dangers that other species might easily survive. Humans originate from a world fraught with peril, Death Planet, as Zyra's species would describe it. Unlike many other creatures, humans lack protective fur or a hard shell. Their method of reproduction, live birth, further complicates their survival. Human women, due to their bipedal structure, cannot carry an infant to full term without immense difficulty. Consequently, human infants are born almost entirely helpless, blind, and dependent. This helplessness persists for many years, as the human brain takes nearly 2 decades to reach full maturity. This inherent weakness could be perceived as a disadvantage. However, nature has a way of balancing such vulnerabilities. In humans, this balance manifests as an intense protective instinct in the parents. But it's not just the parents. Most adult humans exhibit a remarkable drive to protect any child, regardless of kinship. Stories abound of humans performing superhuman feats, lifting objects many times their weight, diving into freezing waters, fighting off large predators, and walking through fire, all to save their young. Zyra found it fascinating that humans, who often portray themselves as rational and composed, could transform so drastically when their children are threatened. She documented numerous accounts where humans declared, without hesitation, that they would destroy anyone who harmed their children. This sentiment wasn't mere hyperbole. History and contemporary reports provided ample evidence of humans enacting brutal vengeance on those who dared harm their young. One could argue that such intense protectiveness is universal across species. However, in humans, it seemed amplified to an extraordinary degree. This instinct was not confined to biological parents alone. Zyra noted instances where unrelated adults displayed the same fierce protectiveness toward children they barely knew. It was as if, on a primal level, every human child was everyone's responsibility. This realization led Zyra to a deeper understanding of human societal structures and relationships. The paradox of human vulnerability and strength extended beyond mere physicality. It shaped their culture, ethics, and communal bonds. Humans, despite, or perhaps because of, their weaknesses, had developed complex systems of cooperation and support. Their societies thrived on interdependence, with community care often taking precedence over individual gain. Zyra's studies revealed another layer to this paradox: the capacity for violence intertwined with profound empathy. Humans could be shockingly violent, especially when driven by the need to protect. Yet, they also possessed an immense capacity for compassion and kindness. This duality was what made humans both fascinating and terrifying. They were capable of creating great beauty and committing unspeakable atrocities, often driven by the same underlying emotions. In her reports, Zyra often reflected on how this paradoxical nature of humans made them both unpredictable and resilient. Their ability to adapt and overcome stemmed not just from their intelligence, but from their emotional depth. It was this emotional spectrum that allowed humans to form strong bonds, which in turn fueled their survival instincts. As Zyra concluded her observations, she couldn't help but admire the complexity of human nature. Despite their flaws and vulnerabilities, humans had carved out a place in the galaxy, not just through brute strength but through a unique combination of intellect, emotion, and sheer willpower. They were, indeed, a paradox of strength and weakness, embodying the extremes of both with an intensity unmatched by any other species she had encountered. And so, Zyra's chronicles continued, each chapter revealing more about the enigmatic species known as humans, always circling back to the profound truth she had uncovered. To harm a human child was to awaken a wrath unlike any other in the universe. The vast expanse of space had always been a place of mystery and danger, but today it held an unusual assembly of starships. Docked together in the shadow of a desolate asteroid were three distinct vessels, each representing a different species: humans, Reiner, and Drovar. This rare coalition had been formed for a singular, urgent mission. Their target: a remote processing facility suspected of illicit activities, including the abduction and trafficking of sentient beings. Leading the human contingent was Captain Marcus Voss, a seasoned and battle-hardened commander with years of experience in interstellar conflicts. His team, a mix of elite soldiers and specialists, included a lone Reiner named Laura, known for her unparalleled medical expertise. The Reiner ship was captained by Threx, a formidable strategist whose reputation for tactical brilliance was well known. The Drovar contingent, towering and imposing with their heavily muscled forms, was led by Commander Jorek, whose combat prowess was matched only by his deep sense of honor. The mission brief had been simple yet chilling: investigate the facility, uncover any illegal operations, and rescue any captives. Recent intelligence suggested that the facility was involved in a particularly heinous trade: harvesting and selling the flesh of sentient children. The mere thought of it had sent a shiver down the spines of even the most hardened warriors. As the teams gathered in the docking bay, Captain Voss addressed them, his voice steady and commanding. "We are facing a grave situation. This isn't just about stopping a crime. It's about saving innocent lives. We move in swift, we move in silent, and we show no mercy to those who would harm the defenseless." The plan was meticulously crafted. The Drovar, with their brute strength, would take the main entrance. The Reiner, agile and stealthy, would infiltrate through the docking bay. The humans, skilled in covert operations, would breach the facility from the side entrances. Each team was equipped with advanced weaponry and communication devices to maintain constant contact. As they approached the facility, the tension was palpable. The cold, metallic structure loomed ahead, an ominous reminder of the horrors it concealed. Captain Voss signaled for the teams to move out. The Drovar led the charge, their massive frames moving with surprising stealth. The Reiner, almost invisible in their sleek suits, slipped through the shadows. The humans, faces set in grim determination, advanced with silent precision. Inside the facility, the atmosphere was eerily quiet. Storage areas, docking bays, and packing plants were systematically cleared as the teams moved inward, their formation tightening with each step. They communicated in hushed tones, coordinating their movements to cover every possible exit and corner. It was at the heart of the facility that they found the first sign of their quarry: rows upon rows of cages, each containing a small, terrified child. The air was thick with the stench of fear and desperation, the room chillingly cold compared to the warmth outside. The sight was enough to stop even the most stoic in their tracks. Captain Voss felt a surge of rage unlike any he had ever known. His hands clenched into fists, knuckles white with fury. His team mirrored his emotions, faces contorting with anger and revulsion. The Drovar, normally unflappable, looked on in shock. Even the Reiner, known for their calm demeanor, were visibly disturbed. "Captain," a team member whispered, drawing his attention. Voss turned, his eyes hard and determined. "Let's get these kids out of here." The rescue operation began in earnest. With practiced efficiency, the teams began opening the cages, soothing the frightened children and guiding them to safety. But the mission was far from over. The perpetrators of this atrocity were still at large. A sudden noise from the adjoining room alerted them to the presence of the facility's guards. The Drovar, with their superior strength, took point, while the humans and Reiner flanked them. The doors burst open, and the teams stormed in, weapons at the ready. What they encountered was a scene of depravity. Members of the criminal syndicate, caught off guard, scrambled to defend themselves. The battle was swift and brutal. The Drovar, wielding their massive plasma blades, cut through the enemy ranks with devastating force. The Reiner, agile and precise, incapacitated their foes with surgical strikes. The humans, driven by righteous fury, fought with unmatched ferocity. Captain Voss himself engaged in the fray, his movements a blur of lethal efficiency. He fought with a singular purpose: to ensure that no one who had a hand in harming the children would escape justice. The room echoed with the sounds of battle, blaster fire, the clash of steel, and the cries of the dying. In the end, the syndicate members lay defeated, their plans thwarted, their lives forfeit. The facility, once a place of unimaginable horror, now stood silent. The rescued children, though traumatized, were safe, thanks to the bravery and determination of their rescuers. As the teams regrouped, Captain Voss looked around at his comrades, humans, Reiner, and Drovar alike. They had come together, setting aside differences, to combat a great evil. In that moment, the unity of their purpose was clear. "We did good today," Voss said, his voice carrying a note of pride. "But this is just the beginning. There are more out there who need our help, and we'll be there for them, no matter the cost." With that, the diverse coalition of warriors departed the facility, leaving behind a legacy of courage and compassion. The mission had forged bonds that transcended species, united by a shared commitment to protect the innocent and uphold justice in the vast, star-filled galaxy. As the three strike teams converged on the center of the facility, the air grew tense with anticipation. Captain Marcus Voss, leading his human contingent, signaled for silence. The corridors narrowed, and the faint hum of machinery grew louder, echoing off the metallic walls. The dim lighting cast long shadows, adding to the foreboding atmosphere. Voss's communicator crackled to life. "Reiner, team in position," came Threx's voice, steady and calm. A moment later, Commander Jorik's gravelly voice followed, "Drove our team ready." "On my mark," Voss responded, his eyes scanning the surroundings. They were close. He could feel it. The tension in the air was almost palpable, a heavy weight pressing down on them as they prepared for whatever lay ahead. The teams moved in unison, their footsteps synchronized, their movements silent. Voss took point, his senses heightened, every nerve on edge. He knew that whatever they found in the next room would be the culmination of their mission, the heart of the darkness they had come to eradicate. The door to the central chamber loomed ahead, a massive, reinforced barrier. Voss gestured to Laura, the Reiner medic, who swiftly moved to the control panel. Her nimble fingers danced over the interface, bypassing the security protocols with practiced ease. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing the horrific scene within. Rows of cages, stacked from floor to ceiling, filled the vast chamber. Each cage contained a small, terrified child, their eyes wide with fear. The air was thick with the stench of sweat and desperation, the oppressive cold a stark contrast to the warmth outside. A wave of revulsion washed over the team as they took in the sight. Captain Voss felt his blood run cold, then boil with rage. His fists clenched, knuckles turning white. He had anticipated finding something terrible, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. The faces of the children, their silent pleas for help, tore at his heart. Jorik, the Drovar commander, let out a low growl, his massive frame trembling with barely restrained fury. "How could they?" he muttered, his voice a guttural snarl. Threx's usually calm demeanor cracked, a flicker of horror passing over his reptilian features. "We need to get them out of here," he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. Voss nodded, forcing himself to focus. "Rescue the children first. Then we deal with the monsters who did this." The team sprang into action, moving with purpose and efficiency. The humans worked quickly to open the cages, their hands gentle as they lifted the children out and reassured them with soft words. The Reiner provided medical aid, checking for injuries and administering calming agents. The Drovar, with their imposing presence, stood guard, their eyes scanning for any threat. As Voss helped a young girl from her cage, her small body trembling in his arms, he felt a surge of determination. These children had suffered unimaginable horrors, but he would ensure they were safe from now on. He glanced around at his team, seeing the same resolve mirrored in their faces. They were united in this mission, driven by a shared sense of justice. A sudden noise from the far end of the chamber snapped Voss's attention. The door to another room burst open, and a group of armed guards spilled out, weapons drawn. The tension that had hung heavy in the air snapped, and the room erupted into chaos. "Defensive positions," Voss barked, raising his plasma rifle. The Drovar surged forward, their massive forms creating a living barrier between the children and the attackers. The humans and Reiner took cover, returning fire with deadly accuracy. The guards, members of the criminal syndicate, fought with desperation, but they were no match for the combined might of the strike teams. Voss moved with lethal precision, his shots finding their marks with unerring accuracy. Threx and his Reiner warriors struck with swift, calculated strikes, their movements a blur of lethal efficiency. Jorek and the Drovar were a wall of unstoppable force, their plasma blades cutting through the enemy ranks. As the last guard fell, silence settled over the chamber once more. The teams regrouped, breathing heavily but unharmed. The children, though still frightened, began to relax as the immediate danger passed. Voss approached the remaining door, a sense of grim determination settling over him. "Let's finish this," he said, his voice steady. "We find whoever's behind this and make sure they never harm anyone again." The team moved forward, their resolve unshaken. They were united by a common purpose, driven by the horrors they had witnessed. Together, they would bring justice to those who had suffered and ensure that such atrocities would never happen again. With a final glance at the children they had rescued, Voss led the way into the heart of the facility, ready to face whatever awaited them. Amid the chaos, Voss focused on the man in the dark armor, who remained eerily calm despite the violence around him. Voss knew that taking him down was the key to ending this nightmare. He signaled to Threx and Jorek, who nodded in understanding. The three of them moved as one, advancing through the room with lethal intent. Voss fired a burst of plasma shots, forcing the man to take cover behind a console. Threx leapt over the barrier, engaging him in close combat with blinding speed. Jorek, using his immense strength, cleared a path through the remaining guards, his plasma blade leaving a trail of destruction. The man in the dark armor was a formidable opponent, his movements quick and precise. He deflected Threx's strikes with a skill that suggested extensive combat training, but he was no match for the combined might of the three commanders. Voss and Jorek joined the fray, their coordinated attacks overwhelming him. In a final, desperate move, the man drew a concealed weapon, aiming it at Voss. But Threx was faster. With a swift, lethal strike, he disarmed the man, sending the weapon clattering to the floor. Jorek seized the moment, delivering a crushing blow that sent the man sprawling. Voss stood over him, his plasma rifle trained on the fallen figure. "It's over," he said, his voice cold and unforgiving. The man laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "You think you've won? This is just one facility. There are more, and you'll never find them all." Voss's eyes hardened. "We'll see about that." As the team secured the control room, Voss activated the facility's communication system. "This is Captain Marcus Voss of the United Coalition. The facility is secure. We have rescued the captives and neutralized the threat." He turned to Threx and Jorek, a grim smile on his face. "We've done good work today, but this fight is far from over. There are more like him out there, and we need to find them." Threx nodded, his reptilian eyes filled with determination. "We'll hunt them down one by one, until no child is ever harmed again." Jorek placed a heavy hand on Voss's shoulder. "Together, we are unstoppable." The team began to dismantle the facility's operations, gathering evidence and freeing the remaining captives. The children, though traumatized, were safe, and their captors would face justice. As they prepared to leave, Voss took one last look at the control room, a sense of resolution settling over him. The mission had forged unbreakable bonds between them, transcending species and backgrounds. They had faced unimaginable horrors and emerged victorious, united by a common purpose. And as they set course for their next mission, they knew that together they would bring light to the darkest corners of the galaxy. With the facility now secured and the children safe, Captain Marcus Voss and his team gathered in the main control room. The flickering screens displayed a wealth of data, most of it encrypted. Voss knew that if they could crack these codes, they might uncover the locations of other similar facilities. Laura, the human medic who also had a knack for technology, took a seat at one of the consoles. Her fingers flew over the keyboard as she worked to break the encryption. "This might take a while," she muttered. her eyes focused on the screen. Threx, the Reiner commander, stood watch, his reptilian eyes scanning the room for any sign of danger. We need to be quick. Reinforcements could arrive at any moment. Jorek, the Drovar leader, nodded in agreement. We'll hold them off if they do. Just get us the information we need. Voss moved to stand beside Laura, watching as lines of code flashed across the screen. He felt a pang of frustration at their limited time. Every second they spent here increased the risk of enemy reinforcements discovering their position. But they needed this data. It was their best chance to shut down the entire network of these horrific operations. Laura's brow furrowed in concentration. "I'm in," she announced finally, her voice filled with a mix of relief and urgency. "But it's worse than we thought. There are dozens of these facilities scattered across multiple star systems. Some of them are heavily fortified." Voss felt a chill run down his spine. The scope of the operation was staggering. "Can you download everything?" "Already on it," Laura replied. "It'll take a few minutes." As they waited, the team remained on high alert. Voss paced the room, his mind racing with the implications of what they had discovered. This wasn't just a small-scale operation. It was a galaxy-wide atrocity. They needed a plan to take it all down. The silence was shattered by the sound of an alarm blaring through the facility. "They're onto us," Threx hissed, his hand tightening around his plasma blade. Jorek moved to the entrance, his massive frame blocking the doorway. "Get ready. They won't go down without a fight." The first wave of enemy reinforcements burst into the room, weapons blazing. Voss and his team responded with lethal precision. Plasma bolts and energy blasts filled the air as the battle raged on. The strike team fought with unwavering determination, each member playing their part with skill and coordination. Laura continued her work, her focus unbroken despite the chaos around her. "Almost there," she called out, her fingers flying over the keys. Threx and Jorek held the line, their combined strength a formidable barrier against the oncoming attackers. Voss fired his plasma rifle with deadly accuracy, each shot finding its mark. They couldn't afford to be overwhelmed now, not when they were so close to uncovering the full extent of the enemy's operations. "Download complete," Laura shouted triumphantly. "I've got everything." Voss nodded, a fierce determination in his eyes. "Time to get out of here." The team fought their way back through the facility, the data safely stored in Laura's portable drive. They moved with the same precision and coordination that had brought them victory in the earlier battle. The corridors echoed with the sounds of combat, but the strike team pressed on, their resolve unshaken. As they reached the exit, the alarms continued to blare, signaling the imminent arrival of more enemy forces. Voss knew they had to move quickly. "Everyone, to the extraction point," he commanded. They made their way to the docking bay where their ships awaited. The journey was fraught with danger, but they moved with the confidence of seasoned warriors. The children they had rescued earlier were already being transported to safety, escorted by a separate team. Just as they reached the docking bay, a massive explosion rocked the facility. The shockwave threw them off balance, but they quickly recovered. Voss turned to see the source of the blast. A group of enemy combatants had attempted to blow the bay doors to trap them inside. "Move, move, move," Voss shouted, urging his team forward. They sprinted towards their ships, the engines already warming up for a rapid departure. Threx covered their retreat, his plasma blade cutting down the last of the enemy forces. Jorek followed, his massive frame providing a shield for the rest of the team. Laura and Voss were the last to board, the ramp closing behind them as they took their positions. The ships lifted off, engines roaring as they soared into the sky. Voss breathed a sigh of relief, his gaze fixed on the facility shrinking in the distance. They had done it. They had the data, and the children were safe. But as he looked at the faces of his team, he knew their work was far from over. The information they had gathered would lead them to more horrors, more battles. They were ready. United by their mission, they would fight until every last facility was destroyed and every child was safe. As their ships entered hyperspace, Voss allowed himself a moment of reflection. The darkness they had uncovered was vast, but their resolve was stronger. Together, they would bring justice to the galaxy, one battle at a time.